In honor of the Silent Hill 2 remake dropping very soon, I wanted to walk you all through how to create music similar to the music in the original Silent Hill games. Now, I've done a few videos on this before, but again, with that release right around the corner, I figured it'd be a great time to jump back in. A lot of people probably getting back into it, and if there's any memory that most of us have, it's probably the amazing ambience of those games. Now, for the majority of this song, actually all of it, I used samples from my newer sample pack, Uncanny Dreams Volume 2. For those who don't know, I released a Volume 2 of Uncanny Dreams about a month ago, and I'm using all samples from that sample pack. So if you're wanting to make that like Silent Hill, classic 90s survival horror ambient, I think you guys are gonna love this new version of Uncanny Dreams. It's a lot darker, a lot more of those ambient type sound effects you'd see on old sample CDs that the composers for Silent Hill used. So, jumping into this, I created two versions of this track here, two really main motifs. One is a little more ambient in nature, and one is a little more musical in nature, if you will. Right? And so those are color coded here in blue. And the main thing I want to show off here is the power of what you can do with one sample when you mangle it up. So let's kind of go one by one here. In this first sample here, you'll see down in my sampler, I have looped up and pitched up. If I take that EQ off, so really nice, creepy old sample there. And by coming in and taking out a lot of the low end and pitching up the sample, you get a much more brighter ambient type sound. Has some like really nice rumble on it. Almost sounds like wind chimes. And then sending this to this delay 2 over on an FX track here. And so really, really nice sound there. We're coming in, just playing an A2. And this kind of just serves as a background element, some ambience. Now the next thing we have here is this pad sound here. And you'll see I have that pad looped up in there, so I could technically hold out a very long note. Really great sounding pad. And so you guys already know about this in samplers. You have a root note that you throw that sample into the sampler at its original pitch. And then when you play notes outside of that root note, it transposes the sample in a very interesting way. And so the root note C3, I came in, played a very short G sharp 3, D sharp 3 for this little progression here. That sounds like this. Just like a very melancholy-esque type pad sound there. Super common in terms of what you would find on like an old Silent Hill type track. Another thing I want to briefly touch on here is just in samples and when you're throwing them in a sampler, looping them up, the art of looping. You know, this loop here isn't perfect. Candidly, I think that adds to some of the charm of the sound. So that's something I like to keep in, is that imperfection. And then also don't be scared to come in here and play with the amp envelopes over here. Right? I noticed with this sound, there was like a slight click at the beginning of it. So I tried moving the start playhead. It was still kind of a little clicky. So then I just increased the attack to have it fade in a little bit better, and it worked out. So don't be scared to, you know, quote unquote mangle the samples. That's the point of a sampler. Next thing I want to show, this next sample here. Almost sounds like some crickets, some background ambience. And so what I did with that is came in, have a couple notes away from the root key that kind of act as, you know, some ambient one shots on here, some attack on there as well, so they fade in a little better, and this is what you get. So then you can combine these elements Right, so very, very Silent Hill-esque. That's what we're going for here. And I mentioned this briefly before, but we have two effect sends here, and all of these elements are getting drenched in effect sends. So typically a reverb and a delay are going to be great to use as a send. And then what I'm doing with the delay here is anything that's sent to the delay, I'm then sending the output of that to the reverb over here. So just making things super wet with effects. To really enhance that atmosphere. Effects are so important, so crucial. Last sound we have up at the top here for this first motif is this. And what we're doing with this, we're playing a C-sharp 2, so pitched way down, so we get a bit of this ominous type sound. So just incredible atmospheric sound. And then when we loop that up with everything. Exact type of sound you want in a track like this. Now, before somebody comes in and says, oh, you're just using samples, I literally created all these samples that I'm using. And if you want to know how to make samples like this, I actually put out a video on it as well. So please save those comments for later. All right, so let's go into this next half of the track here. And this piece is a little more just dark ambience. There's not a lot of melody, emotion in it. I really wanted to focus on just background ambience. And so we take this first sample from before and we keep that going. You know, and this sound alone, I mean, incredible. And then what I did was took this first sound from before where we were playing an A2 and I came in and played a D sharp 3. So we just pitched it up, triggered the note twice, sounds like this. Right? So we took that same sound from before and pretty much completely changed a lot of the vibe and feel of it just by pitching that note up. So our background ambience here, that's pretty steady. That keeps playing at what it was originally. But with our pad, we came in and we started playing a D1 here. So the previous notes were pitched up more, closer to the root note, or above it rather. In this next pad, we're playing way down on a D1. So it's the same pad, just pitched way down, which gives you this much more like brooding, deep, rumbly pad sound. It sounds like this. Just very eerie. And when you take a lot of these samples and pitch them way, 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 way down, you get a lot of that bass in the sound, which helps create that very ominous-like sound. And then you kind of combine that with some of the higher pitch sounds that we layered on top of this. Now, the next thing we did was pulled in this other sound here. Of course, again, all these sounds are from my Uncanny Dreams Volume 2 sample pack, so definitely go check it out. Thank you, I love you. The sound sounds like this. Kind of a one-shot. And we take out some of the low end on that. And then if we go into the MIDI here, we're playing a F sharp 2, so a little bit away from the root note of C3, and it sounds like this. And I'm trying to use that as a transition effect between like these main phrases within here. So for example, if you have, you know, an 8-bar loop, you're going into the next phrase, You want to try to do that as smoothly as possible. And so I'm taking this transition sound, and instead of starting it right on the one, right, of the next phrase, I'm shifting it a little bit before that to start to like smooth out and create a seam between these two phrases, if that makes any sense whatsoever. All right, so in ambience, it's trying to create that like smooth flowing type of track, and it's okay to have things, you know, off put a little bit on the grid. They don't have to be perfect always on the one, or, you know, right at the start of every phrase. Get crafty, get in there, and just get it done. Cool. All right, last sound here, this one. Another one type sound, or one shot type sound, and I think, did we look at this earlier? We didn't. And so with this, we're playing single notes, so very quick hits in here, almost like an airy belly sound, right? Playing with those velocities in here, but we have these just shooting off in the background, like this. Everything together. So now you know how to go and make your own Silent Hill ambient music. Go create some tracks before the remake comes out. I'm pretty stoked about that. I know a lot of you are as well. And go check out Uncanny Dreams Volume 2 if you like the sounds you heard in this video. That sample pack is full of them. If you don't have the money for it, I put out a video about a month ago on how I made a lot of those types of sounds. So if you want to actually learn how to make these sounds from scratch and not just put them together, go check out that video too. Either way, you have no excuse. Appreciate the time, guys. Hope you have a good one.